Welcome back to another Drew Sutton Leadership Show. In today's Spotlight episode, we have Adam Lattin. Adam Lattin is a healer, a teacher, mystic, and student of life. He assists others in creating the life that they choose. Adam Lattin is a connection and communication coach. He has been working with his clients in various capacities since 2000. For those younger members of the audience, that is slightly after the Mayflower crossed. He believes it is important to honor and celebrate people's limitations rather than shaming people for what they are unable to do. He teaches that connection requires accurate receptivity. He works with individuals, couples, and families to create more effective communication when possible. He recognizes the value of directing clients rather than hoping they will discover the path themselves. He believes that that in this new age, it is important to filter information more than to seek information. He also self-published a book with a co-author named the book entitled The Clearest You. He is always excited to work with new clients and also has resources to refer others if he's not immediately available. Well, welcome to the show. Welcome, Adam Lattin.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Hey, so you and I, we kind of met in an online community for coaches and for leaders. It's been great to listen to you in the various sessions. I was super excited to get you on the show here. So before we get to have some real fun, you have to pass the gauntlet. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Tea.
The show Friends or The Office?
Well, I'm sorry?
Friends or The Office?
Oh, definitely The Office.
Oh, definitely. Okay. Fair enough. All right. Crossword puzzles or Sudoku? Sorry. Sudoku or crossword puzzle?
Oh, Sudoku. Definitely.
Yes. Okay. Spicy food or mild food?
Medium spicy food, not like Test of Manhood spicy. I can't do Test of Manhood spicy. But
I personally, my limit is the ramen noodles and white potatoes. That's my personal spice limitation. Yeah. Are you a texting person or a phone call person?
I'm sorry?
Texting or phone call?
Oh, definitely phone over text. I love hearing people's voice. There's depth and flavor when I hear someone's voice over text.
I could definitely see you being a phone person. Okay. Does pineapple belong on pizza?
I don't know if it belongs there. It can definitely share space when I eat pizza. But I don't know if it technically belongs there. I think it's an option.
It's an opt-in. I'll go with that. We can still be friends. I'll take the neutral response there. Is Pluto still a planet?
To me, yes. It's just I don't care about like all that like specific scientific nonsense stuff.
Oh, it's still. I'm with you. Pluto's still a planet.
Right.
That's okay. Well, you've reached the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. So now I'm going to ask you a leadership question. There's a group of laws that John Maxwell put together that I like a lot. So let's grab the law of the inner circle. A leader's potential is determined by those closest to them. How do you feel about that?
I think it can be. The problem I have with that statement is, especially when people are younger, their inner circle is limited geographically pretty strongly. So if they don't have the option geographically to truly expand, I don't think they're limited because I believe they can grow and change and engage once they realize that location does impact a lot.
No, I cannot agree with you more. I totally think so. So I'm from Kentucky. That's where my home base is here. And the entire state of Kentucky does not have as many people as New York City, right? Like the entire state. And which makes it a great place to live. There's beautiful land, the rolling hillsides, there's horse country. We have bourbon. We do a lot of fun things, but the mindset is very, very different. I have a lot of friends from New York, and actually this year I've really gotten a lot more friends from New York. Which is great, but the speed of New Yorkers is crazy compared to a little more relaxed Kentucky movement. Yeah, no, it's definitely, the other thing I've watched, um some of the rappers like Ice. I don't remember the names of the rappers, but some of the guys have talked about as they went up through the ranks, you have to leave people,
Yep.
because and it's really a sad experience. And Kentucky has kind of the same experience. You kind of have to leave if you want to jump up the ranks really quick. And you end up leaving people that aren't willing to grow with you. So I like your phrasing that
So the way I phrase it,
yeah.
because I'm very careful with it, is there are some people that won't grow with you, but there are
Yeah.
truly some people that can't grow with you even if they want to.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so that's even harder because some people really combine someone's ability to grow with their love and appreciation for you as a person. And it's
Mm,
really not true. Some people do have a neurological ceiling, like their brain will not be able to dynamically understand different types of information. So a lot of
I
what I do is actually helping people understand that piece that it's not won't, it's can't.
I love that politically incorrect statement. Like that's a flavor you're not going to get. But I totally agree with it. And it's not a negative thing if somebody can't do it. It's
Right.
our job as
No.
leaders to it's yeah, it's our job to help you hit your max ceiling, and find a comfort there at your max. But understanding that not everybody's the same. I think that's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
I think that kind of echoes. So you brought up several times in our interviews leading up to the show, how important cherishing people is to you. Like you're a connection coach, not
Right.
just leadership coach or productivity, but you really help with connection. So talk to me a little bit about there. What's your philosophy around connection and cherishing?
So I believe that people need to be able to receive, to be able to navigate a connection with you and someone else. And as I was talking just a moment ago, I believe that not everyone, we don't choose really what motivates us. We don't choose how we absorb information. It's something innate in us. We also don't really choose what makes us feel cherished. It either does or it doesn't. And it can change, it can metamorphosize, but we still don't really even know what causes that metamorphosis. And there's no true, authentic, like neural pattern science. There's nothing that we really fully understand. So to create connection, we need some form of communication. We need a certain level of self-awareness. We need a certain we need to qualify someone's ability to receive the information of what makes us feel cherished. We need to understand, can they actually produce what we're asking them, or are we asking them for a skill they just can't neurologically develop? And so I kind of say, like, saying to someone, if you love me, you'll be a better plumber, it's not fair to the other individual. So creating connection is a lot about assessment, being cherished, knowing what makes you feel cherished, and being clear on the volume of, well, this makes me feel cherished at a level 7, and that makes me feel cherished at a level 3. So there's all these different things. It's very complex. And most people don't even think about that word separately. Like, just literally, I often will come across people who've never met me, and somehow it'll come up, and I'll say, well, what makes you feel cherished? And I cannot tell you the number of people that I get deer in the headlights. They're like, I've never been asked that question before.
Yeah. Actually, as an interviewer, sometimes folks say stuff, and this is like one of those moments where I'm processing it more than I'm able to run the show. Actually, it's a good one, man. I've said it in a different way, and I'm obviously describing something different. But as a boss, how do I make sure that everybody at my work has dignity? Like, how am I extending dignity to all the folks on every level of the team? But cherished is really even a level beyond that. Um, and I think maybe it's a good question for us all to ask for ourselves and
Oh
also
yeah,
for those closest to us.
right. And it's about really being honest and direct. You know, people sometimes want to receive an experience and feel cherished by it, even if they don't. So we really need to learn how to be honest, like what makes you feel cherished. Um, and to be clear, to know, well, that even this did make me feel cherished, but it doesn't anymore. And so constantly having that conversation, being able to be honest with yourself and really be self-aware is a huge process. And especially tackling it alone can be completely overwhelming because we're taught to have the right answer. And a lot of
Mm,
discovering what makes us feel cherished is actually exploration and experience and discovery. Just thinking it, we're often wrong. So we have to actually really sit in it. I define being cherished as when someone cherishes you, they really hear and understand, whether it's words, items, activity, uh, any sort of connection, a method that is not about how they want to present their appreciation. It's clearly how you specifically receive it. And so people say, I love you all the time. And I have no doubt they love. But that's the thing is they love from their place. You cherish from someone else's space. You really separate from your identity and you cherish based on how they receive solely, not necessarily when we love. We sometimes present appreciation from how we want to present it.
hmm. Man, there's a lot to unpack right there, man. I was like, "Hey, you want to come on and do a light show here?" And Adam's like, "Cherish, let's talk." No, no, it's fantastic. I think that maybe if we ask, because you do feel uncomfortable. Like I'm processing it myself here. You feel uncomfortable saying what makes me feel cherished.
Right,
I like to be appreciated. I like to know that I'm contributing. I like
right,
somebody to know that they respect me. But to have somebody that looks at me and says, "I cherish you," like I super value for your sake, not for my
right,
sake, for your sake,
right.
what and who you are is super interesting. So what? So tell me about some of the success that you've had as you've helped people discover what makes them feel cherished in the context of relationships.
Okay. So within relationships, I have a great experience. I had a client who I'd worked with previously before on more an empowerment phase, but she
Mhm,
was struggling because she had two daughters. And
mhm,
what I basically said is one was focused on adoration, on being adored,
mhm,
and the other one was focused on like status. They wanted to be kind of valued for their status and their identity. But she was a compassion person. So she was trying to instill behaviors that were focused on adoration and status onto her children, getting them to trying to force them to refocus. These were like a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old. 19-year-old was about to go to New York where she had an opportunity to do something on stage. And that was
mhm,
her. She wanted to be adored. She wanted that sort of status. She wasn't really as concerned about the compassion connection and stuff like that. And when we just started working with those concepts, we realized that them not being motivated and driven by the same things, she was inherently minimizing and diminishing their focus each time she talked to them, trying to redirect them to the level of compassion that she wanted. She wanted them to focus more on individual relation. The other one was older. She was going to college and she was really focused on being seen as a powerful professional. That's what she wanted. That was her status was really important to her. Both these children were doing it ethically. They weren't doing anything wrong. That was
yeah,
just their motivation and their focus. And that was what was driving them forward. Okay.
yeah,
But
totally.
she literally, when she was communicating with them, she was constantly redirecting them away. She didn't even want to hear about what they were involved in because it wasn't with her focus and with her motivation. And
Man,
especially the one with adoration, it was going to try and achieve something. She had a plan, but it brought up a fear that you're choosing something that not everybody succeeds at. You're going to have to come back and I'm going to have to be responsible for you. So the child was
mm,
then feeling that fear because it wasn't voiced. It was just there was a level of fear and panic in the parent, and she was responding negatively to that because she didn't feel like the parent was supporting dreams. Once I told her, you need to say your real fear is financial, it actually broke the dam, and everything was able to be sorted out with like, okay, I absolutely want to support you, but I want you to also know I am terrified of having to be fiscally responsible for you. As long as you know I'm not going to do that, I can support your dream and your direction. But she needed someone to bring that out and really communicate that that's what was happening. I had to find out about what drove each child to then help that kind of direction.
That's man, family dynamics are so important, but also crazy
Right.
like that. And as adults, as parents, I don't think you can overemphasize the amount that we can put on our kids if we aren't emotionally clear ourselves.
Right.
And things, the emotional needs of our kids. Like my son, I remember when he was, and this is just a little kid. He was like, one of our kids would literally go take a nap. He was 2 years old. He'd go take a nap by himself because he was tired. Like self-regulation. He's like, hey, I'm tired. Peace out. I'm gone. And the other one would just run like a squirrel all day. And
Right.
but then he would also get like just raw to the bone, like emotionally. And we couldn't figure it. We tried everything in the books. We were like, I don't know what to do. And my wife finally had an epiphany. Because when we'd eat dinner, Andrew, the squirrel one, he would like end up in your lap. It was kind of like a magic trick. Like I didn't know, like he would start at his chair, and I don't remember him ever moving around, but somehow he'd be in my lap, eating his food in my lap. My wife noticed that. She was like, maybe his love language, his little love tank, is physical touch and connection
Right.
in physical, like, closeness, but he's so hyper that he never gets it. And we just assumed that he didn't need it, because the other one, when Nathaniel, when he needed touch, he'd just come sit in your lap, sit for
Right.
5 minutes, off he'd go. And
Right.
but Andrew wouldn't. And when we realized that sometimes the behavior, this thing over here, is being driven by this unspoken need over here, it blew
Right.
me away. I was completely humbled. That it leveled up my understanding of leadership in general. Like,
Right.
not only do I have to do what you're asking for, I have to be smart enough, not smart, that's the wrong word. I have to be empathetic enough to realize what else, like, I want you to be here. You're here. Doesn't make sense. Oh, maybe your love tank somewhere is not getting filled up,
Yeah.
and with kids, it's one way, but with employees, it's completely different. Like you can't just,
Oh, yeah,
pick an
no.
employee. There's rules, right? There's HR and stuff.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. But there's definitely an aspect of, at least with a lot of the parents I deal with, there
mhm.
is such a fear of the child not succeeding.
Mm.
And it's so unbelievably heavy. It does so much damage to those that aren't able to fall in line in a very exact, specific manner. And so, what I do is I help people recognize how much their fear is the only thing their child sees.
Yeah. No,
And if the child sees fear, they're not feeling love and support and all these other things. And so, like with families, that's kind of one way. I also work a lot within relationships. Most people don't realize, as I kind of was saying earlier, physical locations, but even spaces. Most couples I know, especially after COVID, your home, the place where you actually go to sleep, is so much more often work than play. And they
mm,
wonder why they can't create connection, or they're trying to create like a romantic connection in a place that's basically work. Connection, especially romantically, should be, or not should be, but would benefit people if it was play. Okay. And
yeah.
so many people are just coming home and like watching a movie and going to bed. Well, where is the bond building that's going on? Where are the activities or the experiences or the moments? Like even going to bed someplace else, like getting a hotel room, like 5 or 10 minutes away somewhere. can even completely change up the energy. And you're
Yeah.
no longer in a place of, you don't have to be far away from your children. You can be close if an emergency happens, something like that. But really asking yourself, how often am I creating the space to play and build with my partner in a place that's not work?
Yeah. No, I love that you bring it up because a lot of times people, like, I'm an engineer by training, and people are like, oh, well, you're a pretty personable engineer. What's going on there? And I come to engineering kind of like a scientist, which is I'm trying to discover what is and then talk about that behavior. And I don't know why. Like, I'm not looking for the why. I'm looking for the behavior and the variables, right? Like what is and how do those things interact with each other? And I think that we feel silly sometimes because we're like, we don't need to play as an adult. I don't. No, you do need to play.
You
You're
do.
created. You need to play a lot. That's why we have work besties, right? That's why we have people that we laugh and cut up with.
Right.
Humor is the great gift. It de-stresses life. It builds way more. I think I was reading something that said it takes 70 cycles to create a habit, but if you're playing, you can do the same habit in like 20 cycles. Like, it's so much faster when you play. I don't know what it does. But
Right.
again, I don't know what it does, but I know that it does, right? And I
Right.
think that a lot of times we just need to be like, hey, it works. I don't know why it works, but
And that's actually a lot of what my work is about. I know that there are people that put their faith in certificates and higher education and all that type of stuff. And I'm not that person. I'm not the person that you're going to find has studied, like, has a PhD in psychology or anything like that. What I have is individual specific experiences working with hundreds of clients, working with people around asking the right questions, because I truly believe everyone's a unique individual. That's why my business name
yeah,
is The Clearest You, is because I want someone to be clear on themselves, but also the reason I have the you is clear on their universe. Like, really
okay,
be clear on what's going on in their external environment. I talk to people that are stuck in the past, and they say, I'm always stuck in the past. Well, describe to me how many items in your home are memory triggers. And
yeah,
are they all everywhere in your home, or are they in a specific small area? Like, I talk to people about, hey, nothing wrong with holding on to memories, but have it like a memory closet or a memory corner.
Mhm.
Don't have an inspiration filled house with a memory corner.
No, I
Not
love that.
not
Yeah,
a home that's just filled with memory.
yeah. Let's say that you're 65,
Right.
you probably have another 20 years, right? The time between
At
45 and
least
65.
nowadays, at least
Yeah,
probably
there's
25 years, because they're 65 now. How much more medical stuff will be advancing age in the next 10 to 20 years? So we're
yeah. So
not talking just based on our own medical technology now.
right, we don't just have grandkids to enjoy. You have great grandkids to enjoy
Grandkids to
at
enjoy.
65, right?
Right.
No, I love that the challenge and I felt this myself. I'm not I'm only 42 now. I felt this myself, kind of a calcification of this is all the stuff that I've done in the past, and this is who I am, and this is where I want to go. I'm actually taking a kind of a mental note here to push forward on that vision board a little bit harder and say, no, I got a long runway ahead of me. What are we going to do? It's exciting to get out
Right.
there and do some more.
How are you going to
Um,
explore and experience with your 40, 50 years ahead of you? And
yeah.
are you doing just a vision board, or are you doing a memory board and then a vision house, where
Mm,
all the different things create these different pieces? Like, not the bedroom. The bedroom really should be, in my opinion, something to create relaxation, not thinking about choices of the future or anything like that, just releasing. But the rest of your home,
yeah.
outside of your bedroom, like, there should be pictures of meals you're inspired to cook in your kitchen. Like, there should be trips you want to go on in your living room. There should be something representing different things in your different spaces that are more future focused rather than focused on memory.
I love it, man. This is good stuff. I enjoy talking to folks like you. A lot of the guests on the show are in the middle of a big product that they're launching, or they're talking about their new technology, but really bending back to what motivates us and how are we playing. I think that we get wrapped around the axle so often. I had a group of folks. We were having a meeting, and I brought out ice cream sandwiches, and one of the ladies said, she's like, "Oh, channeling your internal child, huh?" And I said, "No, actually, I channel my external adult most days, but my baseline is it's pretty play. It's somewhere in there."
Right.
And but the way you've articulated it is I'm able to do that because I feel cherished, and I am excited about what's happening in the future, and that keeps me more in that play section than it does in the overly stuffy. My world is based on what you think of me at the moment, or this next project. Let me switch topics real quick. So
Yeah.
you have another phrase that you've come up with that you've said several times to me, and I've loved. It's don't try harder, try different. So
Okay.
tell me, how do I think about
So
that? How can I apply that?
one of the things that I really believe in
Yeah.
is we used to live in a society where you just had to effort your way through things because there
That's
weren't
true.
resources where we could get creativity support.
Yeah.
But now with the advent of the internet, the amount of potential resources for creative answers is endless. So that's why I said earlier that we need to be
Yeah.
able to filter more than we seek. But it's still
Yeah.
important to seek. I believe that telling someone to try harder, that in general, is one of the most shame-inducing statements you can make. Because if you really listen to that phrase, try harder, there is an automatic assumption you are not putting forward your best effort. That people are constantly telling you you are not putting forward your best effort and there's magically somewhere to go. That makes anyone, adults, no matter what, feel unheard. But it's even worse when it's used on children. It's absolutely awful the way that people end up feeling stupid for decades because they were taught a method of absorbing information that did not actually work for them. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I learn by
Oh,
mentorship and having other people show me how to do things. Now, people say that's actually being a visual learner, but it's not. A visual learner is actually someone who absorbs information through their eyes, through actually reading material. Okay? Someone who watches is most likely someone who needs a high level of pattern recognition to learn a process. So, what we have going on is I believe that if someone is struggling with something and you tell them to try harder, you're minimizing their effort and you're judging the fact that that technique absolutely should be working for them. And they're doing something wrong.
yeah,
They're
man.
actually doing something wrong. And that's so unbelievably, it's such a shame-filled statement for me. It makes me see red. So I say, no. Don't try harder. Try different. There are so many creative outlets.
Yeah.
Okay. If I'm working with a client and they say that doesn't work for me,
Yeah.
I never say try again. I say, okay, so let me list these other methods or techniques that you have or haven't tried. What have you tried? What haven't you tried? I find that, especially with those people that do have a certain level of self-awareness, pushing against walls is just exhausting. Just exhausting. And I'm not interested in someone being exhausted. It's not, I can't relate to that. I can't connect to that conceptually. So
No, you brought up a
yep.
whole stack of interesting things here. One of them, I say with our kids, if at first you don't succeed, you did it wrong. And the implication is, okay, so let's figure out what we need to do it right.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing I love that you brought up, and I have several patents myself. I used to lead a research department at a big company, and I kind of come to the spot what you're describing, which is I don't know that there's a whole lot new innovation left. I mean, there are clever people that are come up with new innovation, but I used to think when I was younger that being smart and coming up with a new idea was the best thing I could do with my time. And then now I've decided, kind of like what you said, listen, there's somebody else that's already thought of that, or at least they have some really good methodologies. Don't go try to reinvent the wheel on something that somebody else has already figured out. Right? Let's go learn from all the people that have tried it, especially the successful ones, and then let's figure out what they've done and let's try that. And there's lots of iterations of what they've done
Try
there.
different. Right. Exactly. Yeah.
We go try something
And
different. It's so much more
and
refreshing.
I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of high school and college students,
Yeah.
and when I communicate to them, like there are a lot of students nowadays that really need group learning, and no school seems to really push. No traditional public school. Let me rephrase that. No
Yeah.
traditional public school tends to push group learning.
Okay.
And when I've been able to identify a student that learns by group rather than by trying to cram it in through their eyes, I've had students coming back to me having gone from barely able to squeak out that C to basically getting an A minus with
Mm,
hours less effort per class simply because of a different method of learning, honoring the fact that they learn differently. And
yeah.
so,
Yeah. I'm actually personally, I learn by talking to people.
right.
So, and I don't know how it works. Like when I'm trying to explain something to somebody or when I'm asking a question, somehow the other person just being in the room with me, I'm like, oh, I get it now. But when I'm by myself, I get stuck in loops and I can't find my way out of problems. And just
Well,
talking to somebody unlocks things for me.
but also remember that it's because you're a pattern thing. And so talking to someone really helps you see the pattern in a clear, uncomplex way because you're also
Mhm.
giving their attention. So you're kind of splitting your attention a little bit and it
Yep.
eaves off on the pressure. Think of like a lot of times your inspiration comes and it's almost like a water spout that is so powerful. It doesn't like the hole that it's going through is actually too small. So it
Mhm.
doesn't really push. But then when you take back and you reduce the power on the spray, it goes straight through.
Yeah. No, I get it. This is cool. Like, so you work with families, right? You help
I
families
work
connect
with
with each other.
families, I work with couples, and I work with individuals. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just want to stress here. My dad and I had a lot of friction, and there was a lot of you need to try it. You need to just try harder. And he and I have talked about this. Actually, this is so he brought this up. I have very bad ADD, and probably dyslexia as well. And so I learn by talking to people. I learn by doing it. I don't really
Yep.
learn by actually reading is like almost the worst way for me to try to learn something. Um, I'm also very like I think it's serotonin driven. Like I love being on the stage. I love like an
Yep.
attaboy. If I think you like me, then I'll do anything for you, type of a thing.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, my dad and I had a lot of friction and it costs a lot of heartache and a lot of pain. Like um even today, I don't have as close a relationship to my dad as the rest of my siblings do because of a learning style difference, kind of.
Right.
And I think it's super valuable that you can come in and help solve some of that. Dad and I kind of solved it after the fact.
Right.
Um, and he said, "Oh, I think we discovered some of my modalities, and now we have a better relationship."
Right.
But being able to solve the problem with your kid at that younger age, so that you can have those bonding years with more bonding time, I think is super valuable. How old when you're accepting clients, and I think that you have some space in your calendar these days. What do you look for in a client family relationship scenario?
So, I mean, really, this is why I we're offering discovery calls because I really want to connect to someone. It really depends. Like I've worked with people whose children are like 6 years old. So like I wouldn't probably go under 5 years of age
Okay.
because expecting regulatory control on any level, even a little bit, from under a 5-year-old is just
Yeah.
asking for trouble to begin with. But I'd say, 7, 8, 10, teenager. I worked a lot with teenagers. Teenagers are really complicated, especially like the preteen teen years. Like that
Yeah.
can be very complicated. One of the things that I say is that it used to be a child would develop their own opinions and ideas and philosophies around 12 to 13 years old. Now, because of the influx of information, children are developing their own opinions around 8 or 9 years old. And so,
I have 4 kids, and I would say that that's true. And I never thought about the influx of information. We talk about hormones, you talk about
Right.
what we're eating on the physical body, but really the mental, their minds are having to develop a little bit faster because of all of the influx of. That's crazy idea. That's cool.
And so, parents are still expecting 8 or 9-year-olds to obey, because years ago, when they were growing up, 8 or 9-year-olds obeyed still. It wasn't until they got into the more teenage years. But now we're looking at, by 8 or 9 years old, the biggest modifier indicator of their personality is their peer group, not their parents. And parents have a huge challenge in learning techniques that actually help them navigate this truth, because they still operate from a force-based place, not a negotiation-based place, or not navigating the fact that if you try and get someone to obey and tell them you're right and they're wrong, all you're going to do is break the bond potentially permanently, depending upon how severe the differences actually are. And
that's super important for folks to hear, I think. And I'll say with my kids, I'd actually once they hit 13, most of them kind of settled out. I have 3 of them are in high school now. And they are still going through their emotional hurdles of the teenage years for sure.
Right.
Boys, there's girls, blah blah blah. But the friction that we had was really 11 and 12. That was really that preteen friction was. We run the family pretty much like, I'd rather you break your leg while you're at my house than do something stupid when you're 18. So like I let them eat their own consequences and plan their own food and that type of thing. So I think that the 9-year-old stuff you're talking about, we actually let them dialogue that, but significant pushback, Dad, you're stupid. That type of stuff was 11, 12 for us, not for the teenage years. And that tracks with what you're talking about. That's cool.
And one of the things I want to say is, based on where you're living, the movement hasn't reached as far in your area as it has. Like, I'm a New England guy.
Yeah.
So I'm from like Connecticut. I spent a decent amount of time in Massachusetts and New York. There's even more education and awareness and even less obey in this area than there is where you're from. So it happens even faster depending upon where you are locationally. Whereas, interestingly enough, I lived in Peru for 2 years. And so when I lived in Peru, most families live together until the child is between their 20s and 30s. It's almost unheard of that a child separate during their late teen, early 20s. It's like you just don't do it. So I saw the cultural differences, the way they built connection, all these different pieces that I was able to actually take with me that are even more proof to it really is specific based on the area where you are.
That's interesting. Well, we're kind of running up towards the end of the show here. I want to make sure that folks understand. So if you've been listening to this and you got kids, you got a spouse, you got coworkers, basically if you have a relationship, there's probably some communication you could work on. How do you express cherished? How do you express try harder? Or are you saying try different? I think those are things that will really transform your relationship. And there's so much more Adam has to offer. If you call up Adam, if you get a hold of him, we're going to give you your number in a second. You can reach out and you can set up a 30-minute discovery call with him to see if he can help the challenges that you're going through and having been a coach for almost 25, your coaching practice is almost an antique at this point. You've been doing it for 24 years. That I think the clearest you, I think, may be an option for you, especially if you have the kids and you're working on those transitional things and you can't figure out why the kid isn't behaving like you were expecting him to. I think maybe Adam is a good call for you. So here's the Calendly link, calendly.com/the clearest you. And that's just the letter U for those that are listening, the clearest letter U /30 minutes. Or you can go to theclearestyou.com. But really, Adam, I think the best way to get a hold of you, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is the phone number.
Yeah, no, I know that a lot of people are really into the emails and the tech, the technology and stuff like that. For me, phone, simple call, simple text. If you don't want to set up a Calendly, that's perfectly okay. You can just call and kind of say, hey, I'd like to schedule a discovery call, and we'll just sit and I get back to people usually within 24 to 48 hours. Sometimes it's not the same day. Sometimes it is, but I love seeing people succeed. I love seeing them expand. I love seeing them be able to celebrate their life in a way that they haven't had before. And so that's why I do the work that I do.
I love that the way that you just pitched that. It's such a relational way to talk about it. Again, so for the folks that are on that are listening here, it's 860-805-0482. This is literally his phone number. Give Adam a call and he will answer you and set up a discovery call. Tell him Drew sent you. Tell him you heard him on the Drew Sutton Leadership Show here. It'll be great. Adam, with that, I'm going to play a little bit of music. Do you have any closing thoughts you want to give out to the folks here? And then we will close the show out.
I think for a closing thought, it would just be give yourself grace in knowing that you may not have had the most positive role models and that you don't know what you don't know. And so if there's something that you don't understand, you have to learn it. You can't be a magic master of it.
Man, give yourself grace. Learn to cherish those in your life. And if at first you don't succeed, try
different.
Adam, thanks so much for being on the show. And with that, we are out.